The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
In the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we have a right to life, we have a right to defend life.
This legislation is centered on meeting the needs of Idaho families.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
The courts have long held that our ability to transfer title on real property benefits society as a whole.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
I feel like we're back to an unappointed board that gets to decide who is essential and who is non-essential.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
And for me, it's about a couple things. It's about food security, it's about national security, and it's about preserving American exceptionalism.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
The research we did last year when House Bill 71 was passed, we have way fewer than 500 people in this state that it even affects for transgender care. Out of 2 million people, we're talking about denying care for potentially 500 people. State employees, their kids, Medicaid recipients, anyone the public money touches. And so if you do the math on that, we're talking about $35,000 a year probably. And against the potential for millions of dollars in litigation. Now, which bill do we want to pay? Which is the responsible conservative bill to pay? And it's not only the responsible fiscally, it's the one that's human. This care is necessary. I spoke to somebody after committee. I'm not going to talk about committee, Mr. President.
Good.
It was after committee. I called her on the phone and I said I was deeply moved and I'd like to hear more. And she talked about how depressed she was and suicidal until she got the kind of care she needed for her dysphoria. I mean, close to death. But now she's, well, who knows about this bill passing, but now she's happy, she's employed, she works for Head Start. Her life is going the right direction. She even said, I'm thinking of getting a state employee's position, so maybe I can stay in Idaho and maybe I would get insurance. But now all that's changed. And now she's looking for another place to live out of state, which quite frankly is happening widely. I don't know about you, but you better believe in my district, I'm getting call and email after email from people that can't take it anymore because they can't get their health care. That's wrong. I think by limiting these treatments by the particular class we've isolated, again, discrimination, it's inhumane. And as a state government, we want to send a message to our state employees and the people on Medicaid, whoever it is, you're worth something. Not we're going to deny you care, send you into fits of depression and suicide. It's a small tab to pay. And we should do that. I am asking you today to vote against this, even if it's just the financial responsibility to our state to keep us out of litigation costs and racking up more bills that will have to get more money in the legal defense fund and have to pay our attorney general. And more importantly, because it's the human and compassionate and the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Just.
to debate the bill.
You have the floor.
I too think we're going to find out that this legislation is unconstitutional because it discriminates against Idaho citizens seeking these treatments. And I think we'll also find out it's against Medicaid rules for much the same reason. I don't want to waste taxpayer dollars defending this indefensible bill, so I'll be voting against it. At some point, though, I'd really like it if someone would explain to me what there is to fear from transgender citizens. I know several, they just don't scare me. Their only agenda is that they want to live their lives in peace and without discrimination. Let's please just leave them alone.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Samorov.
to debate the bill.
You have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, a couple weeks ago, we had students from Bora High School visiting the Statehouse, and they got to see lots of things. They also practiced parliamentary procedures, and they had a great experience. They also happened to catch conversations around this bill and hear some of the exchanges. And when we asked them what they thought about it, they said, one student in particular said, it was surreal watching my humanity being discussed. And they also went on to say that this bill does not reflect their reality. Thinking about those high school students, those students who are going to go on and hopefully eventually some of them sit in these chairs, it's interesting to know, to think about what they will take away from the experiences they had a couple weeks ago and that feeling of watching and listening their humanity being discussed and debated on. I will be voting no.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Lenny.
to debate the bill.
You have the floor.
So my really good friend right now, he has his wife's pregnant and she has a blood clot in her leg, and they're trying to determine the best treatment for that. But that a blood clot could lead to someone dying, as blood clots do if they're not taken care of. That's something that's medically necessary. So I find it, here I am with those words again. I don't understand how removing the genitals of a child would ever be medically necessary. A blood clot in your leg is medically necessary. A broken femur bone that needs to be fixed. Heart surgery, we could go on and on. Those are medically necessary. But saying that the human compassionate thing to do is to chop off a kid's genitals, that doesn't sit well with me.
Senator.
President, I object.
What I think you've made your point, and this is a sensitive subject, and so proceed as if it were.
It is a sensitive subject, yeah, but I mean, the reality of what we're talking about is what I just said. So I'll be a no on this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Sarah Winthrop, for what purpose do you rise?
Debate the second time.
Does anyone wish to debate the bill for the first time? Now, it's been my experience that when we go around the second time that we tend to set aside the rules of decorum and debate. And so, Senator, I'm recognizing you with that understanding. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to address something I think is very important about this bill, and that was brought up by the senator from 13. Number one, we do not do medical surgeries on children in the state. In fact, I don't know one physician in Idaho that does those on adults. People have to go to Salt Lake City in our neighboring state of Utah. But I will tell you what surgery does occur in the state and is carved out lawfully in the law. We have arbitrarily determined that if a baby is born with ambiguous genitalia, we will allow the parents to choose the gender. And in that case, conduct a surgery on healthy human tissue because the parents
Here, Senator Melissa Wintrow on this House Bill 668, the no public funds for gender transition. And of course, they go off into these 0.001% land when this is clearly not what we're talking about here. I find it so disingenuous, these arguments. Senator Lenny during the time we've been on the air, was the lone Republican to stand up here and call it for what it is. So we will keep tabs on this vote. They're debating now for the second time, but we expect this bill to pass. So we will keep tabs on this, hopefully, and let you know what's going on. We have an important show today. The team and I have been working feverishly this morning to try and make sense of it and put it all together. And so, if you are paying attention to the national news, and I know we don't cover a lot of national news on this program, but it affects us. It affects us here in Idaho. Yesterday, news broke of footage. New York Post reporter was down at the border in Texas. I don't know if this was El Paso. It might have been. Was it El Paso? We have the footage. So let's roll the footage of what was happening yesterday at the border. Yeah, this was El Paso. So if you haven't seen this yet, this is a bunch of migrants, illegal migrants, breaking through an initial barrier here. Of guardsmen of some sort of military unit, whether it's the National Guard or whatever, and these folks bust through, and then they make their way inside the border of America, where we have the big wall that was built, and then they come up to the border and do that. So. Very disturbing footage. Now, what I want to highlight here is that whatever this particular event, this specific event that happened there in El Paso, is under control. You know, the Border Patrol are processing some of these people. I've learned to understand as this is being reported all over the country now on the big news networks and such. But what does this have to do with Idaho? And obviously, this is our country, so of course this has to do with Idaho. This has something to do with us. So, but we need to break this back and bring it back down to a level that we can all comprehend about what's going on. Because that footage right there, it's not about this one specific incident. This footage is going to be seen all over the world. And anyone making their way to this country or sitting outside wondering how they're going to get into this country will now be able to see this footage and say, oh, it's that easy to get through that first barrier that Texas has set up with fencing and wire and whatnot. It motivates people, and that's very dangerous. So dangerous that the U.S. Congress should be working on something right now, and the House Freedom Caucus is in uproar this morning in Washington D.C. because they just voted on H.R. 1102. This is an omnibus bill. This is a $1.2 trillion bill that is 1,012 pages long, 216,000 words, with no plan to secure the border. And this graphic here is showing you how that vote went down. And we've highlighted at the bottom our Idaho congressman, Russ Fulcher, and Mike Simpson. Russ Fulcher voted nay, so good for him. He voted nay on this bill. Mike Simpson didn't vote at all. I don't know why he didn't vote. I haven't seen any communications of why he didn't vote, whether he was not there or what's going on, but he was not there for this important vote on this $1 trillion omnibus budget bill, which in listening to the news on this morning, there's funding in this bill for the Wuhan lab in China. Did you guys know that? Among other things, there's funding for the Wuhan lab in this bill that just passed. That doesn't do anything about the border. Okay, you can see right there, 102 Republicans voted against. 102 voted with Democrats. Yeah, there it is. No, is it 102? 101. 101 Republicans voted with the Democrats for this bill for a total of 286 to 112 Republicans and 22 Democrats for 134 no and 12 people not voting. So it doesn't seem like that those 12 people not voting does makes any difference in the count. However, it certainly doesn't. We don't know where they stand on this vote. So make sure we call up Mike Simpson and ask him what he thinks of how the vote went. That is at the national level, right? Other folks who voted for this bill: Elise Stefanik, Steve Scalise, Dan Crenshaw, they all voted for this bill. And the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House. Matt Gaetz stood up and vacated the speakership of Kevin McCarthy a few months ago. Mike Johnson came in with big fanfare, and everybody was so excited, and it felt like it was a new day. Well, he voted for this monstrosity of a bill, and because of that, because of this, Marjorie Taylor Greene has started the process to vacate him from the seat. So there's a lot of stuff happening nationally, but that doesn't mean that we need to lose focus of what we're doing here in Idaho. In fact, it means that we need to be more resilient in what we are trying to accomplish. And that is protecting our way of life, protecting our sovereignty, and securing our border from an invasion. And that is what House Joint Memorial 11 was supposed to do. And that did not pass in the House. This is the vote on House Joint Memorial 11. This would have sent a message, a literal message. This is a memorial that's being sent to our congressional delegation: Russ Fulcher, Mike Simpson, Mike Crapo, and Jim Reich, to impeach Joe Biden, secure the border, and deal with this illegal immigration. And it failed. As you can see here, it failed because it was a tie vote, and you need 35 votes to pass something. It can't just be, or 36. You need a majority. You can't win on a tie. A tie does not go to the runner. So that bill failed. The folks in red are saying no. We don't need to do anything. Send any strong message to our delegation in Washington. I want to go through exactly the arguments that were on this bill, on this joint memorial. So we have Dale Hawkins, who was the sponsor of this bill, presented in committee. Presented on the House floor when this was voted upon. So when he presented it, they went around the horn. Everybody was talking, and then he closed out with a very eloquent moment here. So let's listen to Dale Hawkins explain to us exactly the importance of this joint memorial.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good body. I'll try to address some of these things. The first thing I'd like to do is commend the good lady from District 32. H-2A is a good program, and those are legal workers in the state of Idaho. And contrary to popular opinion, it is much more expensive to hire them legally, because she is correct. You must pay for the transportation from the country of origin. You must pay to house them, feed them, and give the federally adjusted wage, and there's no way around it. I think in State Affairs Do I need to ask to refer to other legislation if I'm talking about this one that replaced 8?
It was brought up earlier by one of the gentlemen. If you would like to do the same to cover yourself, unanimous consent to refer to previous or pending legislation. Is there objection? Here down, the good gentleman may
and for one of those who moved against this, it was found out in the conversation that indeed they do this direction because it is considerably less expensive. I feel as though if I had put good wages are driving this, then everyone that was against this would have said I was attacking them because of good wages. I don't think any word that I used there would have made anybody happy. The fact is that we are choosing some economic stability, I think, over the safety of our country. Anybody who turns on the news knows that nobody enters the United States of America through our southern border without the help of the cartels. So I would ask the good body, when we say that we want them here, are we saying we support the cartels? And I'm not imposing that on anybody, I'm just asking that question. It was also said that these are all workers and they're all paying taxes. My question would be, under whose Social Security number are they paying those taxes? Because if you're here illegally, you do not have a federally issued Social Security number. So I don't know where these taxes are going. That might be a good thing to know. Another thing that I think is something that the good body should take into consideration. We're not talking about refugees. The standard for refugees, and it was mentioned that, we hope that if we're fleeing our country that we get to go somewhere. The standard for refugee means that if you flee your country for fear, the first country after leaving your country that you step foot on is the country where you receive aid. We have people coming all the way from the Darien Gap. They're crossing several countries before they ever even get here. The funding that must be behind this is astronomical, and I would tend to say that this invasion is being funded by people other than what we might think. There's people behind this. I don't know if you watched the videos of people coming across the border. I don't know how you travel 3,000 miles and you get there with clean clothes. And so there's something going on here that I don't think the people in the United States are recognizing. Look, I pointed out in committee in the 2022, if we just talk about the drugs that are coming with the people who come here, 155 deaths in 2022 from fentanyl. The 2023 numbers were released about a month ago. 570, I think it was 73, 570 plus, more than 3 times in 1 year. What will the number be this year? Will it be a family member of ours? This open border situation and strong language is the only way to go. And it was said that, impeaching the president, that'll never happen. The last one was impeached twice. So why would we say that would never happen? This is direct violation of federal law and their accountability to secure our country. And we should never forget that everyone who crosses the border without permission is a felon. And with that, I would ask for your green vote. We need this message.
Well, there you have it. That was Dale Hawkins on House Joint Memorial 11. Anyone who crosses the border illegally is a felon. Folks, look at this footage. Watch this footage. Now, I'm telling you, and we can keep the volume down. It's a little, it's too much in my ear here. But the footage that you're seeing here from yesterday, like I said, this is an isolated incident, but it is going to be seen all over the world and is going to motivate people to come here because look at what happened. They bust through that line easily. I mean, those troops are wearing, they have weapons with them. And I'm not saying that they should be open firing. Absolutely not. These are unarmed people. But they certainly aren't afraid of that. They certainly aren't afraid of people with guns. They're coming right through. And I don't care what you say, this is an invasion. This is an invasion. This is what we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with. When that vote happened, and you saw the names in red who said no, this is what they approve of. Representative Chris Mathias, Democrat from Boise, had took issue with the strong language and with the word invasion. He took issue with that. We have that clip. Are we ready can we show that clip? Let's show that.
I wasn't going to debate this. I'm not prepared to talk about labor rates, numbers across the border, any of that. I just wanted to share my feelings about the use of the word invasion. When a nation like Russia sends its troops armed to go commandeer land that is not theirs, that is an invasion. When a lot of people, the vast majority of whom are unarmed, are merely trying to flee poverty and violence to come to the greatest nation of the world, by calling it an invasion, we are using inflammatory rhetoric, and as politicians and public leaders, we have a greater responsibility than that. So you're probably not going to vote no, but...
Oh boy. When was that? That was only a week ago, a week or two ago. That ages like fine glass of milk. That's how that ages. Incredible. Yes, this is not like Russia coming over the border with tanks, my friend. But this is unacceptable for the United States of America. It's unacceptable for the people of Idaho. And the strain, I mean, look at these folks. And where are they headed? Are any of these, he said the vast majority of which are crossing don't have weapons. So he at least admits that there are probably some. So maybe in this crowd, there's one or two people that may have weapons in here, or there's a few people that are here that are coming across that are going to do harm. I mean, when you are this adamant about cutting through U.S. military forces to get to the border, holy cow! Look at this. These people have no. Boom, done. Look at that. They crushed through right to the fence, and then they were processed by border patrol. Some of these people are already in, and some were sent back. I don't know the full story. They're still dishing out the news on this, but the footage is there, folks. It's incredible. Okay, so where are these folks going? Well, during the committee hearing on this, your State Affairs Committee was listening to the House Joint Memorial 11, which Dale Hawkins just went through. And they went through some questions with people who were against this memorial. And we got to hear why they were against this memorial. And one of those reasons was this there was language in there that said, oh, the big agriculture and the farming and all this stuff, big ag, basically their thirst for cheap labor. Okay? And one of those people that showed up was a representative from the Dairymen Association. And he dropped a bombshell on Heather Scott and the committee. Listen to this.
The best way I can answer that for you, Representative Scott, sorry, Mr. Chairman, best way I can answer that for you is ICE does I-9 audits. And so all of our employees fill out an I-9. So when ICE has come on dairies in the state of Idaho and have done an I-9 audit, roughly 70% of our employees will not cover that I-9 audit. So that employer has a choice. You either got to get the correct information if it's available, or you cannot keep that employee hired. And so I would tell you 90%, no, somewhere around 70%. I mean, we're always trying to be straightforward and honest about this, because when I'll give you the best example I possibly can give you. When we're in DC lobbying on immigration need for reform, I give them the same numbers I just gave you. Congressman Labrador was up north, and he made a statement, and the statement was that 90% of the labor force in Idaho was on dairies was not legal, which obviously I've given you that 90% number. There was an AP reporter in that room, and I got a call almost instantly. He says, will you confirm what Senator or Congressman Labrador just said? And you take a breath, and you have told Congressman Labrador all the facts. And I said, well, I think his numbers are a little high. I'll put it at 70%. And that's what I'll tell you. I think it's about 70% based on the data we have.
Wow, folks. Wow. When Congressman Labrador, when AG Labrador was in Congress, he was talking about 90% of the dairy farmers are 90% are illegal. Here they are. It's 70%. Idaho's dairy workers arriving for work. Oh, you guys. Love it. I mean, is that what we're looking at here? 70% of Idaho's dairy farmers, our dairy workers, are illegals. These are them. They're arriving for work. Does this just get people excited at the dairy because they're like, oh, we don't want to work hard to hire Americans and make it enticing for them to work here. We need this. We need this. Are those troops on the border hired by the dairymen? I don't mean to disparage them. Those guys are doing fantastic work down there, and it's too bad that they were overrun. I mean, there was 5 guys down there letting these guys in? Incredible. Oh my goodness. We need to pray, folks. We need to pray. This is bad news. Okay. We have been watching the House and the Senate. They're both, the Senate actually just went at ease. The House is still in session. We have multiple calls out. Tony Wisniewski, Dale Hawkins, Heather Scott, Tammy Nichols. We've asked and sent them, we've been communicating with them about coming onto the show, and they're all prepared to do so should the House and Senate adjourn after, within the next 30 minutes or so. So hopefully we'll get those folks on here to get some more insight about what their thoughts and feelings are about what's going on down at the border and what's happening here in Idaho, because newsflash, folks, there's still some work that we can get done. There's a couple weeks left. They're winding down, but there's a couple of weeks left. And we need to make sure that Idaho stands at the forefront of this and protects and stands with the states and protects and sends a strong message that we will protect our sovereignty. It's incredible. 70% of the dairy workers are illegal. Incredible. Okay. When we opened the show, we were watching debate on House Bill 668, no public funds for gender transition surgeries or anything of the like. And I'm happy to report after that debate that it passed. House Bill 668 passes in the Senate. It already passed in the House, so it will be on its way to the governor. So that is great news. Great news for taxpayers. Great news for children and any of the like. It's interesting when the Democrats stand up and say, oh, this isn't happening here. It's not happening here. Well, it whether it is or isn't, it definitely is not going to with taxpayer dollars. That is definitely not what's going to happen. And I'm sick and tired of people saying this doesn't happen in Idaho, or it's not going to happen here or whatever. It's like, unbelievable. Oh boy. Okay, folks. Okay. That's good news. We're going to take a break. We've been on the air for a half hour here going through this stuff. When we come back, we are going to let you know about a bill that's still waiting to be heard in the Senate State Affairs Committee that deals with this issue at the border. Because that footage, look at this footage, guys. That footage is incredible. It's absolutely incredible of the message that it sends to folks all over. So we'll be right back.
Surplus, which is not a surplus, it's an overcharging of the taxpayers.
The dictionary defines a pledge as something that you give as a sign that you'll keep a promise. As Idahoans, that's what we're looking for in our elected leaders. A sign that they'll keep their word. Talk is cheap, and so are political promises, hidden agendas, and special interests. This is why we created the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge, affirming the values Idahoans have been living by for over 100 years, inspired by the only 2 documents everyone has agreed to live by. So when an Idaho legislator signs our pledge, inviting voters to publicly hold them accountable, that's what we call political integrity. The pledge restores trust and honesty between voters and their legislators. It means protecting our shared values and ensuring your voice is heard in Boise. And that is priceless. Thank your legislator for having the political courage to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge. And if they haven't, it's time to ask why.
All right, welcome back, folks. March 22nd, 2024. It is Friday, and things are moving very fast. House Bill 668, no public funds for gender transitions, has passed the Senate. It's on its way to the governor. Fantastic news. But we have been devoting most of the program today to this immigration issue, this invasion at the southern border, the horrific, chilling, absolutely chilling video from the border, and I'm just appalled by this. Not necessarily at this specific event. I want to stress that it's not that I see this and I go, what is this particular event here? Because we know that our good men and women in uniform have taken control of this particular event. But this type of footage, it gets seen around the world, right? And it was already seen around the world before we started showing it here. But the idea that this can embolden people who are coming to the border to see this invasion, to see this stampede of people, of illegal migrants, people who choose not to go into our country the legal way. They are choosing violence. They are choosing violence. If J6 was violent, then so is this. And the direct intent here is to come into our country. And so that is what is happening there. So when they see this and they see people take over American troops to come to the... So what are we going to do about it? We tried to send a message. Republicans, the Freedom Caucus members, they tried to send a message to Congress and to the Senate to say, impeach Joe Biden, secure our border. And it couldn't pass the House. It didn't even make its way to the Senate. It didn't pass the House on a 34-34 tie. Incredible. So there's another bill. Representative Tony Wisniewski presented House Bill 464. This is an interstate compact for border security. It's a simple bill. I have it right here. Congressional approval is not required for this. This would grant the authority to develop and execute a compact. On behalf of the state, the governor may develop an interstate compact for border security among interested states by operation of Section 10, Article 1 of the Constitution of the United States. The governor is authorized to execute such a compact without legislative approval when either this state or another state with whom the compact is executed is subject to an invasion or is in imminent danger, as will not admit delay. This is the statement of purpose up on the screen. Congressional approval is not required. And this bill was presented in the House, and it passed the House. We have a bit here from Representative Tony Wisniewski on presenting this bill and again laying out what's at stake here. So let's listen to Representative Wisniewski.
No, I don't think there's any or many of us that would believe that we have not been invaded. I'd like to read several issues here. The definition of invasion involves two parts. First of all, it's entry. And if you have entry only into a foreign space or a space that you don't belong in, that is mere trespassing. The other requirement is a term called enmity, or intent to do harm. And we certainly have that with the millions of illegal aliens that have invaded our country. The conservative estimates are that there are between 11 and 17 million illegal aliens here in this country. We are being engaged with asymmetric warfare. They're not fighting with rifles or bullets, but we are seeing a lot of damage done to our social structures, hospitals, schools, housing, education, U.S. jobs that are being lost, welfare programs that are being overrun. The bill also includes reference to the Canadian border, and some people have thought, well, we only share a couple dozen miles of Canadian border with the state of Idaho, but that's not the issue. The issue is
okay. Wisniewski goes on with his opening comments here, and hopefully the House has adjourned, so hopefully Representative Tony Wisniewski will be able to join us. We'll see what their schedule is like after they leave the House. Sometimes they go into other meetings and whatnot, and we don't want to disturb that, but hopefully he can come and comment on this. What's interesting, and over on X, Dora is exactly right. She says, our law enforcement will have their hands full with this invasion. We have enough homegrown criminals. We deal with our own here in this state. There's her comment there. And so when it comes to this mass influx of people, and they have to go somewhere, folks. They're not all just going to stay down there in El Paso or any of these other border towns. You see them; they get shipped all over the place. It kind of makes you wonder when they get in, and then Governor Abbott ships them all to New York City, and now they're wreaking havoc up there. I mean, I don't know. Was that the best bright idea to send them to New York City? I mean, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. But that's it. That's what's going on, folks. People are going to get emboldened by this, watching illegal migrants overtake U.S. troops at the border. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that this is happening to our country. I mean, this looks like this looks like if I didn't know any better, I thought I was be watching a Hollywood movie, right? I thought I'd be watching a Hollywood movie here, or footage from the Gaza Strip or Italy, but certainly not here. Incredible. All right, more on this border compact bill, because it did pass the House. And we have what do we have on this? We have another clip for this. Senator Tammy Nichols, who also hopefully will be able to join us. But Senator Tammy Nichols actually during the session break traveled down to the border on her own dime, along with Representative Jason Gallagher. They went down to the border to look at it for themselves. She testified in the House State Affairs Committee on House Bill 464, this border compact bill, and she offered up these comments. So we'll watch that.
I'm Senator Tammy Nichols from District 10, and thank you for having me back in here. And I just wanted to support this. I was down at the border last spring and had the opportunity to spend 3 nights at the border. And I would just want to summarize just a few things. I talked to the Border Patrol there, and they told me they don't really know how many people are coming in. We actually went to the processing center, which in El Paso, they were adding an additional 22 acres to be able to handle the influx of people that are coming in. And that was when Title 42 was getting ready to expire. So they were planning on a lot of people coming in. After we came back last spring, and it was myself and Representative Jason Gallagher, we met with the gentleman on the second floor staff because they had been down to the border too. And I asked specifically, how many people are coming into the state of Idaho? And they told me, we don't know how many people are coming into the state of Idaho because you have buses that are coming in at all hours, at all times. I watched 4 buses at the border fill up within 45 minutes. So approximately 40 to 44 seats on each bus at the gate, filling up the buses to take them to the processing centers. The majority of them were young men. There was some women, some children, but the majority were young men. Border Patrol told me that last year at the time that we were down there, they had already apprehended 95 people on the terrorist watch list, whereas the year before they had apprehended 75. And that's just the ones that they caught. I would like to also state that there's been a lot of talk in regards to security, and Chris Swecker, who is the former FBI official, has stated that the open border, the 1,800 miles of open border, represents the greatest security risk in our lifetime. So what we're seeing happening is that our federal government is not taking possession and doing what they're supposed to do, so the states are going to have to go ahead and step that up, utilize our sovereignty, and be able to protect not only the border at Texas and along those areas, but our own borders. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Senator.
These folks, fighting for you and me down there in Boise, we thank them. Representative Dale Hawkins, Tony Wisniewski, Senator Nichols, so many folks standing up for this issue. And all they do is they get pounded in the press. They get pounded by the left. They get pounded by their own party. I mean, this is what we're talking about here. Look at this. This is just a snippet. And meanwhile, up in Congress, they're passing a $1.2 trillion omnibus bill that sends money to fund Wuhan, China, to fund the Wuhan lab, among a bunch of other stuff. Oh, here's another thing it sends. $650 million to each state to care for migrants. That's what was passed today. $650 million to each state to take care of migrants. The national level is lost, guys. It's up to us here at the states. It is up to us here at the states. Scrolling down at the bottom here is the phone number for the Senate State Affairs Committee, their phone number and their email as they sit here on House Bill 464. I believe Representative Tony Wisniewski is with us. And let's see if I'll let you guys bring him up if he looks ready there. Representative Wisniewski, how are you, sir? We're talking about your House Bill 464, the Border Compact Bill. And in light of the footage that we saw yesterday, I don't know if you've seen it yet. What is going on, sir? It's good to have you here.
Well, thank you, Matt. It's good to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound fine. Thank you.
All right. I did not see that footage yesterday, but I don't think it's much different than what has been going on for 3 years. It may be a little bit out of the ordinary, but the ordinary is just horrible these days. The bill, I didn't catch the previous part of your broadcast, so just to give everybody an update, the bill is stuck it got voted down in the Senate State Affairs Committee. They were concerned that the legislature was giving too much authority to the governor to partake of privileges that this compact would allow him to do.
So when a bill dies in committee, can it be brought back at the discretion of the chair?
It was voted down, and so it was held in committee, and it will not be brought back this session.
Okay, so if we're telling people to call them and have a hearing, that's already happened. Okay. Well, folks, use that number to just voice your complaint because we need to do something here. What's the next step then, Representative Wisniewski? House Joint Memorial 11, it failed on a tie vote. We can't seem to do anything here in this great state to send a message of support for states like Texas and Arizona, and to tell our delegation in D.C. that we mean business when it comes to protecting our sovereignty.
Well, in my opinion, I think a lot of the situation revolves around big business requiring or demanding that we provide some kind of process for legal immigration to supply some of their workers, especially in the agricultural and dairy business. And I think we have to separate out those two issues. We have to make sure that we talk about border security and security for our nation
and separate that from the issue of labor for the industries here in Idaho. We were told by the ACLU that we have only 35,000 illegal immigrants here in the state of Idaho, and that it's a stable population so that we shouldn't have to worry about it. 35,000 is a large number. It's larger than the population of Post Falls or several of the other larger cities here in Idaho. One of the other things that happens when we allow these illegals to come in is we see an increase in the amount of drugs that are being brought into this country. Texas alone last year intercepted about 450 million doses, lethal doses of fentanyl. And that is sneaking past the border with these immigrants that are coming in. And the Chinese are actually modifying their business interests. Instead of just bringing or allowing the Mexican cartels to bring in drugs in the finished product, they have recognized the fact that if they bring in just the precursors, the raw fentanyl, and then bring in pill pressing equipment and then do the cutting here, that results in a smaller amount of product that's being snuck across the border, a little harder to intercept, and they are supplying producers here in this country with those raw materials and the equipment to make the pills. So it's something that we really have to be concerned about. Also, the overrunning of the social services is a big concern. Denver has about 40,000 illegal immigrants in it. It's the destination spot for illegals here in this country. It's overwhelming their hospitals, their schools, their social organizations, their welfare. Some of the immigrants know that they can't get medical help through the normal channels, so they fled the emergency rooms where they cannot be denied medical treatment. So they're going for issues that are not critical and preventing care for our own citizens who pay the taxes to keep those hospitals open. So it's really a perverse situation that allows them to access this kind of health care.
Yeah. Well, Representative Wisniewski, thank you for coming on and helping navigate some of this. You pointed out the big issues. We played some of the your floor debate or your opening when you opened debate on that bill 464, and I'm sorry that it failed in the Senate State Affairs Committee, but that seems to be par for the course over there for them. For folks who want to support your work and keep tabs on what you're doing, is there any place that we should follow you at?
My Facebook page is where I post a lot of information. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me to see what's going on. You can always write to me at my House legislative address. It's twisniewski@house.idaho.gov.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, Representative Wisniewski, and we'll check back with you. Good luck for the rest of the session here.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. All right, folks. We also have two senators, I believe, Senator Nichols and Senator Zeiderveld. There she is. Hello, Senator Zeiderveld. Good to see you. We've been going over this border issue, this invasion that's happening at the border, and this footage that was released yesterday. I don't know if you've seen this yet, where there was a breach down in El Paso, and these folks they basically overtake our military forces down there and make their way to the larger border wall. We covered a lot of the failure of HJM 11, which I know you were going to carry that on the Senate side, should it have passed, but it died in a tie vote. Senator, what can we do? Because we just talked with Tony Wisniewski about the border compact bill that also died in the Senate. It doesn't seem like there's folks down in your neck of the woods there there are enough folks taking this seriously.
I don't. Well, hi, Matt. First of all, hello, everyone. Yeah, you know what? I just was seeing this as I was on the floor. I was kind of scamming through and seeing what was happening, and they're not taking it serious because their need for a workforce is actually more important for them at this time, in my opinion. And it really is disturbing. People really need to be paying attention. And I was listening to you and Representative Vishniewski, and I was pulling up some of my information that I was actually going to share if it ever made it over to the Senate side. Another thing that people really need to understand, not only is this a problem in the invasion going on there, which should be very alarming to us, but if you took that number that they said, that 35,000 illegal immigrants, which I believe is higher than that, and I think it's a turnover. It's a consistent 35, but I think we're kind of like a drive-through where they're coming and going through the state. I was looking up what it cost Idahoans per illegal, and the information I found, it costs $4,880 per illegal immigrant to our taxpayers, and you times that by 35,000, and we're basically paying about $180 million a year.
Holy cow!
Yeah, excuse me, $170.8 million a year that we are paying in our tax dollars. That's just the Idaho State part. That's not the national part. So it's not only an invasion of our borders, an invasion. It's an invasion of our pocketbooks. It's an invasion of our being able to take care of our fentanyl problem, sex trafficking. In Twin Falls, about 3 months ago, we actually had some cartel come into a business, shot 2 people, and then went back to Mexico. This is how bad the problem it is here in Idaho,
Wow.
and it is happening in my own district.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, Senator, stay with us here because I want to bring in Tammy. We'll bring us everybody up here together here if we can. Senator Nichols is going to join us here as well. Hello, Senator Nichols. We've just been talking about this footage that was released yesterday by the New York Post. I'm sure you've seen it by now, hopefully, and the fact that HJM 11 failed in the House. House Bill 464 failed in the Senate State Affairs Committee. That was the Border Compact bill. You've been down to the border. We played your testimony in front of that committee just a few moments ago, and you've heard what Representative Zeiderfeld have said. Where is your take on this? Why are people not taking this seriously down there where you are?
Yeah, well, down where I'm at, we have a state that relies heavily on agriculture. And so there is this problem that we have facilitating with agriculture and what's happening at the border. I was down at the border. I saw what was happening down there. And while we all understand the need for workers and that sort of thing, the problem that we're doing is we're perpetuating illegal activity. And even though the agriculture part of it is an important part, it's a very important part to our state, that doesn't make it right to be able to bring in illegal activity to make it function. And the response of the federal government has been horrendous on what's transpiring with this. Our federal government is completely causing and creating continual problems for all of our states. We all have a border crisis going on, and we have a humanitarian crisis going on. But it's not going to do us any good to turn a blind eye to illegal activity and say, oh, well, since it's happening, we might as well take advantage of the situation, because that's not going to help anyone either. It's just going to create more and more problems. So we really do need to take this, and it's going to be up to the states. We have sovereignty. We should be exercising our sovereignty, but we need to get a handle on things, because it's not just about people working. It impacts our state financially. It impacts, crime rates. I mean, there's a wide array, a wide spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also showed earlier, Senator Zeiderveld, and you had made comment on this on a debate, that we showed the Dairymen Association representative talk about how there's 70% of the dairy workers are illegal, that their forms, their I-9 forms, are falsified. And when we see these people running across the border, we heartlessly made a joke that is this the Idaho dairy farmers showing up for work? Which, sometimes it's okay to laugh a little bit here during this nightmare, but I mean, how do we convince these people that this is not okay? That this is just not okay. We can't be doing this for workers. to have workers here?
It's gonna continue to push legislation and to continue to expose what's going on. If we don't start dealing with reality, then we can't fix it. And so, unfortunately, our ag industry, they need to start dealing with reality.
Yeah. Senator Zeiderveld?
Absolutely. And, part of it is just educating them. And, I do think that they care, but they're kind of between a rock and a hard spot right now with their situation. And I think they would like to have a fix, but we've always gotten in a debate, and I've talked to many of them in my area. I said, the problem is we're allowing this lawlessness. And you knowingly know that they're illegal. And so you're part of this lawlessness. And I said, so what is the next thing that we're going to allow? Because if we turn a blind eye to this lawlessness, what is going to be the next thing? Can somebody come on your dairy, take a cow and say, well, I can prove that I have a need for that cow to feed my family? I said, so what lawlessness are we going to allow next? And I do think that with this happening, it's really going to be bringing a lot of light to what's going on with them. There is the program, the H-2A program. They do not qualify for that. They're exempt from that, but they do have the green card where they can actually bring them in legally. It takes a little time, more work, and more money, but they do have ways of bringing them in legally to work for them and not going this route.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, my final question to you both is there anything that can be done within the last couple of weeks here? I know you guys are shuffling through stuff. You're trying to get out of here by the end of the month. It's an election year. I mean, Mike Simpson didn't even show up to vote for the bill that went through earlier today, that $1 trillion mess. Is there anything that you guys think are you guys talking about anything? Is there anything that we can rally support behind in these last 2 weeks for y'all?
I don't really see anything moving forward in that regard, unfortunately. And that's the sad part, is that this is the prime time to be able to do that. But it's almost as if, it's an election year. And so people are afraid to talk about certain things, unfortunately, during an election year. And I think this is one of them, because many of our legislators live in agriculture areas. And so I really feel that is part of the problem for the session.
I agree, and I think that you're also going to see an increase on our budget. We haven't really been able to stop any of the budget items. The Idaho Freedom Caucus team usually doesn't have enough votes. We have a few that will join us, but majority of them, along with the Dems, have just been increasing our appropriations and budget. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Senators, for joining me. I know you guys are busy down there. I appreciate you taking the time to come on. We'll share your social media accounts and make sure people follow you and know where they can find you. But I hope you guys have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah. God bless these women. God bless them. I mean, and all these folks that are trying, folks. They're trying, and they need your support. They really do need your support. I'm not going to throw up our idahosignal.com today, because I want you to go to their websites. I want you to go check them out. Find them on their social media accounts. We'll put them in the show notes to make sure that you can find all these people. I thank Tony, Tammy, and Glenita for joining us today. It's great. This is an important thing. This is an important issue. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. We're not trying to be fear-mongering here. We're showing you what's happening, okay? And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, then good, okay? If it makes you feel uncomfortable that we keep showing it, and you think we shouldn't be showing this, then you need to wake up to the reality. It reminds me of a quick thing that happened, a quick story that happened during the Summer of Love of 2020, during the BLM riots, when there was a basketball player, I forget who it was, but it was an NBA player who kept going on about, let them voice let them get out in the streets, let them riot, let them do whatever they want. And then they ended up in, I think, Santa Monica, down his street, where they were burning things in his neighborhood or close by. And all of a sudden his tune changed like that. Holy cow, get these people out of here. So is that what it's going to take? Does this thing need to be happening at the Idaho border? Does this thing need to be happening in your county? before you get serious about helping these people. These people need help too. A lot of these people do need help. Some of them have traveled thousands and thousands of miles. But this is not the right way. This is not the right way. This is incredible, absolutely incredible footage, an incredible event. And like I said before, it's not necessarily specifically about this particular event. It's about what this means and what this shows to everyone around the world. To everyone around the world. That America is a place that you can just overrun our guardsmen, overrun our military, whoever was on those lines there, and make your way to get processed. All right, folks. We'll be back next week, hopefully with some good news. It's unfortunate that there doesn't seem to be any action that they can take. But maybe you call up leadership. Maybe you call up Speaker Moyle. Maybe you call up the Pro Tem Winder. Maybe you call up the governor and say, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? 70% of dairy workers are most likely illegal aliens, undocumented, false documented. Maybe we just call them false documented people. It's incredible, folks. We have gotten into this mess. It is absolutely incredible. If you've heard of the Cloward-Piven strategy, it's almost complete. I posted it this morning on X. This fundamental transformation of the United States of America began on November 4, 2008, with the election of Barack Obama, where 5 days before that, he said, we are 5 days away from the fundamental transformation of the United States of America. So look up the Cloward-Piven strategy, because we're seeing it play out in real time over the last 20 years or so. I hate to go. We have to end the show, but we have to figure out something. What are we going to do? We have to figure out something. What are we going to do, you guys? What are we going to do? All right, folks. We'll see you back here on Monday. Thanks for watching. Make sure you share the episodes, share Idaho Signal, and talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to your friends. We'll see you next time.
It's a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.